episode 92. Hope all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving yesterday, and we're filled with lots of wonderful cellular healing food, hopefully, and are enjoying Black Friday today. I guess if you're watching this show, then you're not out shopping. You're concerned about your health and how to heal your cells and get well. So we're glad to have you on the show. Welcome. And I have Dr. Pompa on the line here today, and we have a wonderful topic for you. But before we get started, how are you, Dr. Pompa?
Yeah, great. Absolutely. And hey, remember our episode, day after Thanksgiving, I feel great. And definitely not out shopping. I'm here to share some amazing information. We should have maybe saved this for another day, but of course people can watch the recording because today's information is absolutely life-changing. This is an episode you're going to want to share with friends, family, loved ones that are dealing with cancer, have friends with cancer, and you know what? Not just cancer, but unexplainable illnesses of any type. Today's show really deals with the heart of those issues.
It is. It's very, very exciting information we have for you today. And we're going to be talking about the root of cancer and pretty much most all disease out there. So we're just kind of going to dive in, and what we've been researching, and I know, Dr. Pompa, you've been doing a lot of research that's been showing that there's a metabolic cause to cancer and a lot of other diseases out there. And I'm wondering if you can start by explaining what that means and how that applies to
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a metabolic cause meaning that there's a cellular energy issue, right, of what is causing disease. If you look at my 5 R's, many of you watching know my 5 R's. It's a roadmap on how you fix a cell. R number 1 is you have to remove the source from the body and also from our lives. We talk a lot about that, right? Otherwise, nothing happens from there. R number 2 is regenerating the cell membrane. Very, very important, even in today's topic, but important for everything. It's even how the cell detoxes. But there's also an inner mitochondrial membrane that we need to actually make energy, which is R3, which is restoring cellular energy. So you can see that R2 and R3, you'll see today more, that they have a really close relationship. And R4 is reducing inflammation. And I'll tell you this right now, when R3 gets affected, when we have a drop in cellular energy, we have an increase in inflammation, which leads us to R5, which is, methylation, which has a lot to do with how genes get turned on, our susceptibility, the things that we got from mom and dad we don't like, those things get turned on, but methylation can also turn those things off. And that's R number 5, reestablishing methylation. So all the 5s work interchangeably together. They all are very important. So when we talk about metabolism, disease being started from cellular metabolism, R number 3, and I often say that this is the very first place we have to start with very challenged people, in really chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, hormone conditions, weight loss resistance, brain conditions. We have to start by reestablishing or restoring, that cellular energy. And I tell you, I have to, when we look at the growing number of studies, showing diseases that we're talking about and even cancer is started by this cell energy problem. And I want to discuss that because we're going to have a guest on in a few weeks, December 11th, right? Friday, December 11th, mark your calendars. I think this show is a great prelude to that show where we're interviewing the gentleman who wrote this book, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. His name is Dr. Thomas Seyfried. He's been researching his cancer as most of his professional life, if not all. He's studied and practiced at the greatest universities under some of the great oncologists, and he is absolutely brilliant. However, Dr. Seyfried, his method, his knowledge in this book that he has gathered over many years goes contrary to where most of the billions of dollars in cancer research is going today. Matter of fact, it's going in all disease today, and that is in genetics. I think he starts this book with so much great information that I've been looking at for many years, and that's that all this money going into the genome. Since the Genome Cancer Project, if you will, where they looked and tried to figure out what genes apply to these specific cancers. He makes a great point in his book. He says almost 700,000 targeted gene therapies have been introduced, and we've had zero effect on tumors, zero cures. You know, I mean, so when we look at these results, and he points out just modern therapy in cancer in general, you know, where it's failing. You know, the fact that we have spent all this money on cancer and really, you know, there's just really no impact. I mean, I just opened up the book here, and, you know, and it says this, that the number of new cancer cases, deaths per year is increasing, while the number of deaths per day has remained fairly consistent from 1996 to 2010. We're not winning the war. Matter of fact, when you look at these statistics, and I think there's a great graph in there, can't see it very well, but we look at the number of new cases and the number of deaths, and it really is shocking, you know, when you consider that the billions being spent, we're really no better off. And I think the media spins it differently. I think people are under the assumption that, thank God, we have all these great cures. But his point is this, and I'll make it short and brief. The billions on genotherapy, that's not the cause. The gene is secondary to something that's happening in the cell, to the cell energy first. That turns on the gene. And I think that's the message. And I think when we look at all of this research that's showing that, no, it's not the gene first, that gets turned on, that gets triggered. And I would say it's the same. So we talk about a cell energy issue happening first, a gene getting turned on. And if it's a gene like an oncogene that can lead to tumor formation or cancer, you know, that is really what's happening. And yet we have very little money going into that. I hope that's going to change with, you know, his book and now others, you know, really banding behind him in the realization that cancer is, in fact, a metabolic disease. Now, that wasn't just started with Seyfried. He looked back and I think really proof text a lot of work that was done by a gentleman in the early 1900s named Otto Warburg, who is known for the Warburg effect. He actually won a Nobel Prize, I think it was 1931. And he was actually up for another Nobel Prize, but because he was German, Hitler refused to allow Germans to actually accept the Nobel Prize. So good old Warburg missed his second one. But he showed the Warburg effect, as we know it, I'll keep it very simple, is basically cancer cells can only use glucose for energy and oxygen. And that is really a big deal, because if they can only use glucose and they cannot use fat or ketones, then that would change the way we treat cancer. And it is. So we'll talk a little bit about today of how ketones, fasting, intermittent fasting, these subjects that we talk a lot about, how that really is one of the things that Seyfried and others are doing, these strategies to actually really make a bigger impact in cancer than all of this genome therapy and all of these other therapies that are being done. So, you know, really big news here. And I think that most people don't understand this or know this, but, you know, Warburg was right. You know, cancer can only use glucose. And we'll talk a little bit about how this happens, you know, and therefore, if we change the energy the cell uses to where it can only use fat and ketones, if cancer cells can only use glucose, then you can imagine what's happening to cancer. It gives the immune system a chance to actually get rid of this. And look, you know, Seyfried talks about this. This isn't a treatment for cancer. I want to say that right now at the top of this show and his show. You know, this is really more of a strategy. You know, this is amazing when you look at some of these topics that we're going to be discussing in both of these shows. This is a strategy to prevent cancer and could be a strategy used with other strategies to really give the body a chance to beat cancer. So we'll say that right at the top of the show. So
wow, such exciting information that is not widespread enough. So all of you out there, definitely share this information with your friends and family, because this is really cutting edge information that cancer is a metabolic disorder and that cancer cells feed on glucose for fuel. It's pretty incredible, and it really plays into the ketogenic diet that you talk a lot about. So maybe we can go into that and its role as the ketogenic diet's role as a cancer treatment, and how we can kind of think about what's going on at the cellular level during ketosis that can impact cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I think those of you watching don't understand what a ketogenic diet is. We've written 2 articles on that on our website. You just put that right into, drpompa.com and right up in the article search, and it'll take you to those articles. How to get into ketosis, the value of it. Basically is this. We can force, by getting carbohydrates under a certain amount, we can force the body to use only fat for energy. And what happens in that state, glucose goes down and it starts to metabolize fat. So the cells start to use fat, and it gives off something called ketones as a byproduct of fat metabolism, breaking fat down for energy. And those ketones are actually needed for your brain, because your brain can't use fat for energy. So it needs ketones. And other cells in the body use these ketones. As the glucose drops, ketones rise to make up that energy difference, right? And especially with the brain needs. Ketones have a lot of major benefits. We know it turns on the SIRT1 longevity gene, so people live longer. It also has a major decrease in inflammation. It burns extremely clean in the cell, so it lowers that oxidative stress in the cell. So all these wonderful, amazing things happen when we elevate ketones, right? I mean, we know that years ago they did it to fix brain conditions and epilepsy and other brain conditions, because ketones heal the cell in the brain. And when we look at our ancestors, we know that they went in and out of ketosis many times, just because of the lack of food, right? They just weren't eating as much, and they would go into this ketotic state and healing would occur. One of the seminars, right, for my doctors, I talked about the Hunzu tribe, and they thought that all these reasons why the Hunzu live longer, and it really came down to diet variation. An article that I wrote, there's another article for you to read, diet variation. What happens in the summertime, many people thought they were just vegetarians because the British would go there in the summer and they would see them only eat vegetables. But then what would happen is they weren't there in the winter, when all they ate was meat, fat, dairy fat, and all this stuff, because that's what they ate in the winter. But what they also didn't see is what happened in the spring, where they actually starved. It was called starving spring. And in the old days, they had to do it, and then it became part of their culture, where they would just fast for these periods of time, because they didn't have that transition for where they could grow their vegetables in the summer. But it was cited that this is why they live longer. It's because of the diet variation and this fasting period. Glucose goes down, ketones go up, amazing stuff happens. Many of the Hunzu people, 120 some years old, barely sick a day in their life. And that was actually the title that I showed at the seminar. But look, amazing things happen at the cellular level. So yes, when you go into ketosis, ketones go up. But, also what happens is the body goes into an autolytic or an autophage, where it eats up the bad stuff as well. So the body starts to clear out cancer cells, especially when you utilize ketosis, this specific diet, with a lack of food. Okay, which in our world we call that, we've talked about block intermittent fasts, where we go 4 days on just beef stock, water, or even whey water. So we talked a lot about that. We've done past episodes on that. I don't remember what the episode numbers are. Maybe you do, Meredith. But we also can do it with daily intermittent fasting, like I do, where I don't eat until, I go 18, 20 hours without food from dinner all the way through don't eat breakfast. So I'm putting my body in a state without food. And again, the body starts to eat up bad stuff. Amazing stuff happens. So when we combine ketosis with this restriction, as you'll hear Dr. Seyfried talk about, whether it be a block fast or this daily intermittent fasting, we starve out bad cells, aka cancer cells, but also studies show that it fixes this problem in the cell. And I want to talk more about what problem I'm talking about for people to understand what's happening and why disease is occurring because of this, bad energy in the cell. So maybe I should go to my board and give this better explanation.
Well, and I have a quick question too. So with the KDR, the keto diet in kind of a restriction phase, what type of caloric intake are you looking at on a day-to-day basis? Like what, just for calories for someone that's watching that's maybe interested in trying this out, what would you suggest keeping the calories around to fall within that the KDR kind of recommendations?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that for me, I don't even count calories, right? I mean, I just don't eat until later in the afternoon. So at the end of the day, I'm just getting less calories. One thing that most people watching this show and I'm not for caloric restriction diets, because you can't just say I'm going to eat less, right? I eat less at the end of my day because I'm not hungry. But I had to get myself efficiently burning fat to do that, right?
Doesn't happen overnight.
Right. Caloric restriction diets never work long term because it's like, okay, I'm just not going to eat. I'm not going to eat. Eventually you go, oh my God, I have to eat. You see the bread and you go for it, because most of those people are not efficient fat burners, and therefore pushing food away doesn't work. But when we look at studies, all studies show if you want to live longer, you have to eat less. But it's not about pushing food away. If you interview the Okinawan people or the Tibetans or the Hunzu people, they eat very little. They don't eat a lot of caloric intake. However, none of them are pushing food away. They eat to full, just like I do. Matter of fact, one of the principles I always say when you're doing intermittent fasting daily, where you don't eat until later in the day, you have to eat a big dinner. Otherwise, your body may think it's starving, right? So we eat a big dinner so it has plenty of refuel, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that there's a number of calories, that I want to force people into. I think that when we use strategies of periodically fasting every once in a while, Seyfried talks in his book about, a fast, a 10-day fast once a year, and decreases your cancer, talk about cancer prevention massively, just doing one fast a year.
And that's a water fast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But, in his work and others, we know that if you get your glucose down to a certain point, what we call the target zone, glucose down to 55 to 65, and your ketones go above 2, that's, even if you're doing a beef stock fast, we know that it will work. We know that it will work even on a beef stock fast, getting the glucose down and the ketones up. That's the key, whether it's water or whether it's beef stock. If that occurs, you are starving down bad cells, cancer cells. Your body's going through this autophagy or autolytic, where it's eating bad cells, starving them down because they don't have enough glucose, and then the immune system gets rid of them. Mm-hmm. So
you're in ketosis too.
Yeah, absolutely. And matter of fact, you're almost, when you do a block fast where you're fasting for 4 days, you're literally going into ketosis in 3 days. Meaning that if you measured your glucose, you're going to be somewhere around 55 to 65, and your ketones are going to be above 2, right? What would normally take 2 or 3 weeks to adapt into that phase of ketosis, meaning your ketones are between 0.5 and 5, you're pushing them up above 2 in 3 days. That's the benefit of, a block fast. That's called restriction. We're restricting calories for a short period of time. But see, magic happens. We're eating up bad cells. We're starving down cancer cells. All of us have cancer cells. We're preventing it. We're starving down the bad cells and the cancer cells before they even occur. So, hey, we're talking about prevention here. I don't have to talk about treatment. You can put your own imagination to it and go, wait a minute, this makes more sense. You know what? And according to those studies, it sure does. This is where the billions of dollars should be going into. When you put people in a ketotic state, forcing their cells to burn fat, cancer cells can't use fat. Okay, there's brilliance right away. But now when we add the restriction of putting it with fast, either 4-day fast, 10-day fast, water fasting, beef stock fasting, or daily fasting, we know that we're extending life. Studies show it. It's not my opinion. Okay, let's look at what's happening. I draw a lot of cells, and I want to give myself room here on this board. Can you see that?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. All right, that's a cell. Okay, so in the cell, we have these things called mitochondria. That's where we make energy, okay? Simply put, these are factories. Most cells have, hundreds, some cells have thousands of these little energy factories, believe it or not, right? Heart cells have the most. So this is where we make, I'm going to put ATP in here, and I don't think you can see that. Can you see that little ATP?
Yes, I can. And I didn't know that different cells had different numbers of mitochondria. That's
yeah. Heart cells have your muscle cells have more cells that need more energy. The heart is massive energy. They have more cells. Makes sense, right? And here, I'll say this too. Ready? Sick people have less ATP. Or I'm sorry, yes, they do have less ATP, but they have less mitochondria. Athletes have more mitochondria per cell. Okay, so because why? It's an adaptation. Their cells need so much energy and fuel that they have more mitochondria. So they literally synthesize more mitochondria in their cells. Okay, so sick people less, athletes more, right? All right. ATP, the mitochondria is where we make this ATP. It's the gasoline of the cell. It's what everything happens. Matter of fact, how you move things in and out of the cell, it's all energy dependent, most of it. Everything happens with energy. How you detox the cell, every pathway, all energy right here. You can't think without that ATP. You can't live without ATP. Okay, so here's the thing. What we know, and again, if you look at this, I'm going to just, our number one is remove the source. I'm just going to put toxins, right? Our number two is we have to regenerate the cell membrane. This is important. Okay, regenerate the cellular membrane. Now, our three is we have to restore what? Cell energy, right?
Need those mitochondria.
Okay, I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Now, what these studies are showing is this, and we've known this, even in our work. Certain toxins, our number one, is coming in this membrane, in this mitochondria. There's a very neat membrane inside there called the inner membrane. This is where we make a process, that's where we make 90% of our ATP. It's through a process called oxidative phosphorylation. I just lost some of you, please hang with me. Okay, that's just a process called respiration. It's a process that we need oxygen, and we make from that oxygen with glucose and other things, we make most of our ATP through that very efficient process. Now, if you have no oxygen, there's another process called glycolysis. It uses no oxygen. Okay, it uses only stored sugar called glycogen. Okay, so sprint down the road. You don't have time to take your oxygen, aerobic, right? Energy. That's called aerobics, where you use oxygen for energy, and that's that 90% of the energy. But if you start sprinting, you don't have time. So you take stored glucose and you make a few ATP just to make, but that doesn't last because your thighs burn and you have to quit. It's not as efficient. Does that help people? Okay. So most of the energy is made in this very efficient process called oxidative phosphorylation. This is all I want you to know. In this inner membrane, your body transports electrons across here and it makes this ATP very efficiently. Now, when toxins damage that, I'll put toxins as an X, they come in and damage that inner membrane. Now you don't make as much ATP from that source because the membrane's damaged that makes that ATP. So look, our number one, toxins affect the membrane. Our number two, this inner membrane where most of the cellular energy is made. You need that inner membrane to make the energy. So if the toxins damage the membrane, which they do, see, because the membrane's very fragile and toxins cause inflammation. Gosh, R4. R4 is reducing inflammation. So the toxins drive inflammation that damages the membrane. Now we don't make enough energy, okay? So the energy drops. Now here's what Seyfried and others explain. And Warburg effect explained this a long time ago, Dr. Warburg. So what happens is now we don't make enough energy. So the body, the cell, starts to adapt. It wants to live. Now a good cell goes, okay, we're not making energy efficiently enough. A good cell dies. A naughty cell goes, we're going to upregulate that glycolysis that only uses glucose. And we're going to make up that energy loss from the damaged membrane, our number two, from the toxins, our number one, and we're going to make up that energy loss, and we're going to utilize more glucose, aka cancer cell. Got it? Now, how does it do that? Because when the energy loss goes down because of the damaged membrane, what happens is this: it turns on a gene, one which is called an oncogene. So see, the gene comes second. Okay, so we have this disrupt in the membrane from a toxic source of some type of stressor. Could be another thing, but typically toxin. Stressor damages membrane. Membrane drops energy, and when the energy drops, the cell triggers a gene and it adapts, and now it's surviving on glucose, abnormal cell. So through this process that we're talking about of putting someone in ketosis, where we force the cell to use fat and ketones for energy only, we can redirect this energy source. So now what happens is these naughty bad cells start to die off, okay? And we don't produce more of them. It's brilliant, okay? So also through this process, we're fixing these mitochondria, because guess what? Ketones and fat fix the membranes in the other cells. So we're fixing the membranes, we're restoring the energy in the other cells. So that's the key. It downregulates inflammation. And our number 5, by the way, is, we'll just put the DNA. It's reestablishing methylation. And methylation plays in the DNA. But we want to turn off the gene. So the gene doesn't happen first. The gene gets turned on because of the damage to the mitochondria, the drop in cellular energy, ultimately caused by the toxin. So I just went through the whole 5 R's and how that leads to cancer. And here's the thing. If it turns on another gene, instead of cancer, maybe it's chronic fatigue. Okay, instead of chronic fatigue, maybe it's a thyroid condition. You see, we turn on the genes of our genetic weakness. But the point is this: it starts with a toxin that damages the membrane in the mitochondria that makes energy, and the drop in energy causes a trigger of the gene, and that triggers the problem. You know, so that's what's happening. You know, and Seyfried and Warburg realized that it's not the gene first. It is in fact a disrupt in cellular metabolism or energy that's starting the process. So
it makes perfect sense why this targeted gene therapy isn't working.
that's right. Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's not working. It's not about a gene. You know, I feel that in some respects we're making the same mistake today, even in the alternative world, where we're chasing all these SNPs in the genes, the MTHFR and this SNP and that SNP. And, you know, and when really, what is that doing for our treatment? It's really not much, because the body finds pathways around these different SNPs. It's more complicated than that. This is the issue. This is why people are sick today. The 5 R's is just simply a roadmap to fixing the problem. But look, let's put it all in the context. I'm going to flip this. This is the back of a little piece of paper that I'm using. Okay, so ignore the little thing there. All right, I have drawn this, the stool, right? Remember the stool?
The good old 3-legged stool. Oh, yeah.
Right. I use this as an analogy of autoimmune, but really it's an analogy for all disease, right? It puts it into context. The analogy of a 3-legged stool is, if one leg's missing, it doesn't hold up, right? So we know that it's an analogy for the cause and also for the solution of these diseases, autoimmune and others. And here's the point. We have a gene that gets turned on, epigenetics. Toxins turn on a gene. I just explained that, how the lack of energy can trigger a gene in a cell, right? So a gene gets turned on, and that's how things start to be expressed, whether it's thyroid, diabetes, or cancer. Now, we know that there's certain stressors. So if I write stressors here, they can turn on that gene. Those stressors could be toxins. Those stressors could be emotional, right? They could be physical stressors. So we know that stressors, physical, chemical, or emotional, can turn on genes. Women say, well, gosh, all this started after I was pregnant. Well, there's a toxic component from lead coming out of their bones, perhaps, and an emotional component and a physical component. No wonder a lot of disease and autoimmune starts after pregnancy. Auto accidents, you know, anything, doesn't matter. Toxic exposures triggers a gene. That gene starts expressing a new thyroid condition, a new weird skin condition, or just fatigue, who knows? That triggers a disease we don't like. Now, we know that the gut, or what we call the microbiome, are a special set of good bacteria, bad bacteria that make up who we are, right? We've talked a lot about that. But gut issues today, leaky gut, I could put gut, leaky gut, are part of this why disease is occurring. So certain bacteria we know can turn good genes on and bad genes off, or bad genes on if it's bad bacteria, right? So we know the gut, leaky gut, is a stressor that also can turn those genes on, right? And also a leaky gut can add to the stressors that turn on the genes that way. So this three-legged stool is an understanding for how diseases are arising today. The gut gets disrupted, stressors turning on certain genes, but it also gives us the solution. If we can turn off the gene, we can't do that until we get rid of the stressors. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to label things here. I'm going to do this. I'm trying to do it all. I'm going to be doing too many areas. I should have drew this smaller. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put true cellular detox. I'm going to draw a line from stressors. I'll draw that one up just to give myself room. True cellular detox. Please read the article or watch the video I've done on that. If we're going to remove stressors, really, all detox has to happen at the cellular level. That's what I call true cellular detox. The 5 R's plays into that. Watch the video, read the article. But the 5 R's also plays into turning off the genes. You can't turn off bad genes without fixing the membrane. You can't turn off bad genes, as I just explained, without increasing cellular energy. You can't turn off bad genes without changing methylation. That's R number 5. Really, the 5 R's is how we turn off genes. So we do a lot of supplementation and things, and even diet that plays into the 5 R's to turn off the genes. So remove stressors, true cellular detox. Turning off genes, the 5 R's. The 5 R's also plays into detox, right? So can't separate it, any of it. But the gut, we use things called ancient healing, right? Ancient healing strategies. Ancient healing strategies are strategies like intermittent fasting, block fasting, diet variation. We just talked about that. So that's one of the ways that we heal the gut, downregulate inflammation. When we put the 5 R's with true cellular detox and ancient healing strategies like these fasting strategies and ketosis and changing the diet, we hit every leg of the stool of why people are getting sick today. The fasting with dietary changes, the true cellular detox, the 5 R strategy, that puts everything that we do into context. So I'll sit back down, and if I have to jump back up, to that, I will. But I want people to understand there's a context of these things. We talk a lot about the 5 R's. Where does that play in? It plays into fixing the cell so it detoxes correctly, but also turns off the bad genes. That's where the 5 R's plays in. It's just a roadmap of how we fix the cell. That's key. You can't detox unless the cell pathways are fixed. So the 5 R's plays into everything. The 5 R's plays into even fixing the gut. So it really plays into all of them. But you have to fix a cell to get well. We have to turn those genes off to get well. We have to detox upstream at the cell to get well. And then we have the true cellular detox, which is a whole system that we teach, of how real detox is. But these strategies that we're talking about of fasting, changing the diet, restricting food for periods of times, putting it all together, Meredith, I opened up a can of worms. That's what we do, in context of the stool, and the stool is context of how we're getting sick and, where we're putting these strategies in place. So, when people hear all these, testimonies of people getting their lives back, that's it. That's it right there.
It is a roadmap. And I know you've said it takes all 3 to get sick, but it does take all 3 to get better too, which is amazing how it comes into context, and it makes so much sense. But perhaps someone is listening to us perhaps for the first time, and they're sick. They have cancer, serious autoimmune disease, some major health challenge, and possibly just a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of work it's going to take to get well. So what would you say to someone that that is not well, that is overwhelmed with just kind of what you suggested doing, and where would someone begin?
Well, look, I would begin by watching the past shows that we had, right? I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, like, we wrote articles, the 5 strategy articles, which is soon to be a book, right? And in those articles, we have we talk about intermittent fasting, daily intermittent fasting, where like I do, I don't go until later to eat. We talk about block fasting. We've done shows on, whey water fasts, beef stock fasts. We've done shows on all of these things. And it's in those articles and even videos connected to that. Diet variation, how we go from ketosis to a cellular healing diet. It's all there. Start by getting that education. Come back to this show and rewatch it, because what I just did puts it in context. That three-legged stool. I've written articles on every 5R, of what, how we fix the cell. That those 5Rs are just a roadmap to do it. And ultimately it is about turning off genes. The 5Rs is part of how you detox a cell. Read the article True Cellular Detox, because that is what detox really is. Today, we know that toxins are the issue. You saw, that's how, I explained how the toxin damages that mitochondrial membrane, which knocks down the cellular energy. And then the cellular energy being lower, the body recruits a different energy source, and that's a cancer cell. That's what cancer cells are doing. All from the drop of energy, all really from toxic input. So true cellular detox, you can't do anything without going upstream and removing those toxic sources. Otherwise, you're going to keep making bad cells. But we know that utilizing these ancient healing strategies of fasting and, ketosis, we can, really heal that cell. So that's what, I guess the point is this: the 5R strategies have to be a part of the whole solution, right? The detox done at the cellular level, true cellular detox, has to be a part. That's the center leg. And then, of course, these ancient healing strategies, utilizing ketosis, utilizing fasting, utilizing the cellular healing diet, that has to be a part of the strategy. That's not my opinion. When you look at these experts saying, hey, cancer is a metabolic disease. This is what's happening at the cellular level. I mean, study after study, discussing this and, showing that if we can fix that mitochondrial membrane, if we can fix the cellular energy, how are they doing it? These intermittent fasts, the ketosis, ancient healing strategies, put that with the 5Rs, put that with true cellular detox. That's the three legs, right? There's the cause, the solutions line up: 5Rs, true cellular detox, ancient healing strategies, and again, what are the ancient healing strategies listed about? Block fasts, at least 4 days of a water fast, a beef stock fast, right? Or daily intermittent fasting. That's another strategy.
And
yeah.
That
right.
too.
Yeah.
With ketosis, yeah, I know.
And then varying the diet, ketosis, right? Ketosis with those things, moving them out of ketosis, cellular healing diet. Again, it's in the article Diet Variation, but if you think about ancient healing strategies, those fasts with diet variation, right? True cellular detox, that's from the cell all the way down. And if you read the article and watch the video, you understand more of that. And then the 5Rs, is the roadmap to fixing the cell. So, again, putting everything in context, I think, is giving people a good understanding of what we're doing and how we're getting, people well.
Mm-hmm. And do you tend to do all of these strategies at the same time, or do you think it's wise to start someone with the intermittent fasting and then move on to maybe a block fast and then incorporating detox? How does kind of the timeline go?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's different for everybody, but yeah, you kind of layer it in, right? I mean, it's like, you have to, the 5Rs, we've established many different strategies with each R, right? And we keep developing even new products around each R, so there's not like one product for this and one product for that. We really have many, many strategies we're building, and, we have them on many different products that affect each different R, and sometimes just maybe 2 of the 5Rs, right? There's no order there, but we're always affecting the cell function, and that's what the R's are really about, as a roadmap to what we fix in the cell. So that's going on. And then oftentimes, like I said, detox, there's 3 phases to true cellular detox, right? The first phase is a preparatory phase. So we don't even start detox sometimes until months later, because we're preparing for that. So, and sometimes in the ancient healing, we're starting people with just, hey, stop snacking through the day, right? Stop eating 5 times a day because that's stressing your cell. Let's just go to 3 meals, then maybe 2 meals. And then we do a block fast maybe a month later, where we do 4 days of just whey water, or beef stock, something like that. So it's step by step, but these things are going on, all three legs of the stool are going on, parts of them simultaneously or individually. So I know that's a mixed answer, but we utilize all these strategies. And really what I call it is a multi-therapeutic approach. There's not one fix for anything, is there? What studies are showing is when you have a multi-therapeutic approach, when you're utilizing these fasts, right? When you're utilizing a lot of the nutrients that we utilize in the 5 R's, and when you really utilize true detox, that's a multi-therapeutic approach. That's what works. And most people are watching this are challenged. You need a coach. We've trained at least 60 doctors around the country in this multi-therapeutic approach, in these things like the 5 R's, ancient healing. We're training more. I work virtually. I have clients all over the world, and I coach them. It's not about treating people. It's coaching them so they can learn this process. Meredith, I'd have to say this. Back in the day where I had a brick and mortar practice, right? People came in and there was treatments there, and they would come in treatment. Well, when I started teaching seminars and I really wasn't able to run a practice like that anymore, I started coaching people online, and I was really worried. What about that treatment? The magic happened in the fact that I was forced to actually teach people what I'm showing you, right? We were forced to teach people the process of what true cellular detox is, forced to teach people what ancient healing is and how to do these things. When they learn, then they can do it continually. See, no one gets their life back in months. Why? Because it took you years to get where you are, right? So you learn these things, coaching. If you were going to improve your golf game, for goodness sakes, you would hire a coach, right? It's like you need to be taught this process of true cellular detox, what these phases look like. You need to be taught ancient healing, the 5 R's, how to fix a cell, how to detox a cell. When you get empowered with that information, now you can continue to do it. That's how I got my life back, and thousands of others got their lives back. But the trick, the key, was in the teaching, the coaching, the empowering the person. Treatments are not your answer, folks, if you're already chronically challenged. Treatments are not your answer. I'll say it again. You have to be willing to be educated. And when I take someone on, Meredith, I interview them just to see if they are in fact willing, what they've done. Are you willing to learn? Do you want to learn? Do you want to participate in your own rescue? Because those are the people who I believe will get well. And that is empowering. You need the power. You need the knowledge. So anyways, yeah, we need to be educated in this process. But the fact is when you see these testimonies, those people learned this process. So it's not like you can just, oh, there's one thing. It doesn't work like that.
Not one thing, and teaching people to fish is so empowering, and that's really where the success and the results lie, is people taking this knowledge and really implementing it for the rest of their lives, because it's not overnight, it's not short term, and it does take a massive commitment on your part to change your life when you are that sick.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's looking for the single bullet, the miracle product. They'll spend thousands.
The gene therapy.
Absolutely, right? Everyone just wants it to be a gene. Everyone wants the drug that changes the gene, right? Which is completely failing. Everybody wants the supplement that's going to fix their gut. No, it's going to take ancient healing strategies to fix your gut, right? Everyone wants that, I did that 10-day cleanse. It took you about 30 years to get as toxic as you are. You're going to have to learn the process of true cellular detox. It took years for your cells to get the way they are. You're going to have to learn the process of the 5 R's and how to fix the cell. But if you do, you'll get your life back. And Meredith, we saw how many doctors this weekend, they got their lives back. Many of them were clients of mine, right? The doctors that we teach.
Amazing transformations.
Yeah, amazing transformations. And they did it because they taught themselves the process, right? And people watch testimonies here, right? And you hear these stories. Every one of those people, they learned these processes, right? They got what that 3-legged stool is about. They got the 5 R's. They understood how to rotate products there. They learned true cellular detox better than their doctors, right, to what detox is. And they learn to utilize ancient healing strategies. The way out.
Yeah.
Not, not there's nothing, maybe not easy because you're gonna have to participate, but if it's not, look, if it's easy, it's probably not real, and it's probably not true.
Yeah, it's so true, because I hear often too, oh, I've gone gluten-free, or oh, I'm exercising all the time, why am I not seeing results? They're just not getting to the cellular level, and that is the beauty of all of these strategies, implementing the 5 R's, true cellular detox, ancient healing. These strategies and these tools that Dr. Pompa is teaching work. They are amazing, but it takes commitment and it takes changing your life. And a lot of people just don't want to do that, unfortunately. So that's the reality, and they don't get the results either.
Yeah, and again, it is putting it all together, and I think, Meredith, maybe you and I do a better job of always putting things into that context of the three-legged stool, right? And always saying, yeah, it's 5 R's, fixing the cell, true cellular detox, and these ancient healing strategies. If we just keep pointing people at that context of those legs, people are going to start to get it. It will change more lives. There's no doubt about it. But I think the work of Seyfried, who really dug through Otto Warburg's work. I kind of have to tell that little story there, and I think I started the doctor seminar a few weeks ago with that. That story. My wife was diagnosed with a precancerous uterine cancer, and we stepped back because they wanted to do the typical thing, right? They wanted to go in and remove tissue and the whole works, and her and I stepped back and just said, that's just not the way we think. That's just not, it runs contrary. This is before I knew she had high lead, right? This is before that I knew she had all these hormone problems. Hello, she was already forming, cervical cancer. I said uterine. I'm sorry, her mother was uterine. My wife was cervical, cancer. And so I started digging in, and I found Warburg's work, Otto Warburg, talking about fasting. It led me to a guy named Herbert Shelton, that really educated me about water fasting. And I read all their work, and that's where I got my early education and training in water fasting and fasting period. And that was some years ago. And my wife did a 13-day fast. Now, I can tell you that
water fast, right?
Yeah, water fast, right? 13, that was just water, right? Just doing one fast a year and how that diminishes 90-some% of all cancer. I mean, talk about prevention. And we know even these shorter block fasts, whether it's 4-day fast, a few of those a year dramatically decrease your cancer rates, the prevention of cancer. And I watched her change during that fast. Whatever time later, she went in and they re-looked at it, and what they said would be impossible, they said, don't know how that, they couldn't explain that it was completely gone. Every bad cell was gone. They couldn't find a bad cell. Well, during the fast, her body ate up the bad stuff. Starved down, went into ketosis, low glucose, elevated ketones, turned off the genes. I mean, everything I just showed you, that's what happened. Of course, that's what happened. And, that got me interested years ago in the power of fasting and how it works. These restricted times of food, like the Hunzu people, every spring, they would fast. No wonder they live so long. Well, you know what, folks watching this, you can do the same thing. If you're perfectly healthy, still do a fast. I'm doing one in December. I'm going to do a beef stock fast for at least 4 days. Every fast, you get healthier. Every fast, you get healthier. So many of my clients, I have them doing 4-day fasts once a month. Why? We're eating out the bad cells. We're raising ketones, lowering glucose, down regulating inflammation, turning on the good genes like the SIRT1 longevity gene, but we're also fixing that mitochondrial membrane, right? We're fixing that inner membrane. We're increasing how the energy is made. We're autolytic, eating up the bad cells. Every fast healing occurs. That's key.
Yeah.
Some of my clients, I have them do a 4-day fast every other month. And many of them, I get them to do what I do, where we daily intermittent fast, where we don't eat for 18, 20 hours. In that time, autolytic occurrence, growth hormones rising, ketones are rising, right? So, and again, those things heal the cell, down regulate inflammation, upregulate all the good hormones. So those strategies, I'm healthy now, and I do them. And Meredith, so do you.
I do. I did a bone broth fast last month, and I'll be doing one next month. And I was thinking the whole winter months too, I'll do that 4-day bone broth fast because it's cold here in Pittsburgh, and it's such a soothing thing to do. And I feel so good after I do it. It is so, so worth it. So I encourage any of you out there to open your mind, because fasting, I know a lot of people just kind of are turned off or are fearful about fasting, but it is an incredible, simple, but such a profound strategy to massively transform your health. So, so very, very important to just stay open and give it a try.
Yeah, and most people who are already challenged, hire a coach, right? I mean, remember, it's a three-legged stool. It's not just about the fasting. It is about the true cellular detox. If you don't remove what's upstream, you're never going to turn off the DNA, which is the first leg of the stool, right? We need the 5 R's and those strategies. You need a coach to teach you them to turn off the gene. But if you don't, true cellular detox, you're never going to turn off the gene. And these ancient healing strategies, if you're very healthy, you're healthy already, great, put them into play. But if you're challenged, get a coach so you can put it all into play. But yep, I mean, my wife did a beef stock fast, maybe it's 2 months now ago, and she had this back thing, and it was the only thing that that really helped. It was getting so bad, this back pain from her sacrum. But in each fast, healing occurs. When you put it in context of going upstream and really getting rid of these toxic sources, changing the gene expression, it works. It works. And let's give one more promotion. December 11th, folks, please, watch the episode. And again, I almost wish, because people go back and watch these shows, do in your head right now, figure out which show number that would be. Can you do that?
It'll be 94, okay. Episode 94.
So this is 92.
Yes.
Watch episode 94. And I think this is a great prelude to that, because, explaining that, hey, this is how even more than just cancer disease is occurring. But you're going to hear from Dr. Seyfried about this in context of cancer, how cancer is a metabolic disease. Well, you'll hear more strategies about fasting. You'll hear more strategies about utilizing that with ketosis. We're going to talk about all of that. And maybe in the meantime, y'all can send some questions in to Meredith. Meredith, how can they do that between this show and that they might have for Dr. Seyfried? So how can they send some questions along the way that we could say, hey, some of our audience asked these questions?
Sure.
To you, how?
You can send them right to me. It's meredith@drpompa.com, meredith@drpompa.com. So feel free to send me any questions. Happy to ask Dr. or Professor Seyfried on the show. Really, really excited about the show. And also this information that you shared with us today, Dr. Pompa, on the true roots of cancer and pretty much all disease. It makes so much sense, and it is such powerful information. I'm sure a lot of you will have to just re-listen to this episode many, many times, because it's just so jam-packed with such cutting-edge information that we need to know to make a difference in our lives and in our health conditions, and to help others as well. So thank you, Dr. Pompa. Please share, this episode, and send it to friends and family who are suffering, that need to know this information. Absolutely. So yeah, anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Pompa?
No, that's it. I can't wait for that show myself. So I'm excited. What's the next show?
Next week, yes, that is next week. So that'll be episode 93. We have your friend Dan Howard on the show. He's local. He's in Pittsburgh, and he is a mold expert. And he's going to be talking about mold remediation. So how to clean up your home if you've had mold issues, how to know if you have mold issues. He's an expert, and I know he is a wealth of information on the whole topic of mold. So it is going to be a really, really interesting show.
Another major toxin that triggers major genes that cause major disease. And we get a lot of questions how to remediate homes safely and on mold. So we'll see you on that show. That'll be great. Thank you, Meredith.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Pompa. And we'll see you guys next time. Have a wonderful weekend.